The untold secrets of our world hide in the pages of ancient books. Today I'm taking you through texts so strange they could change history, along with some more unusual literary discoveries. The Lost Book of Moses. In 1947, a group of Bedouin shepherds shocked the world with a discovery that would change history. In darkened caves, they discovered fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But an even more mysterious discovery was made 70 years before that. An antiquities dealer out of Jerusalem found what may have been the original draft of the Bible. The antiquities dealer was named Moses Wilhelm Shapira. The book he found was believed to be the oldest version of Deuteronomy, the fifth book of Moses. It was written an estimated 1,000 years before other texts from the Bible or the Torah. His book was shorter than other versions of Deuteronomy. It also had some striking differences. Instead of having 10 commandments like the normal Bible, this version had 9 divine admonitions. Shapira wanted $250 million in today's currency for the scrolls in his possession. He was trying to sell them to the British Museum. Keep in mind, he wasn't known as a fraudster. He had been an honest supplier of historical manuscripts to the museum for a decade already. He was a scholar who could translate Hebrew and worked with various important European clients. If he said it was legit, it was legit. The truth is a little bit more complicated than that though. Shapira was accused of several forgeries. His scrolls, which together formed a religious text that could change religions around the world, were said to have been artificially aged. However, most modern scholars think that wasn't the case. They believe something else was going on, with outside sources trying to diminish his credibility. Sadly, his credibility was indeed diminished. Shapira's scrolls were dismissed as fakes, and he was discovered dead under mysterious circumstances. It's pretty unusual for a scholar in possession of such a legendary relic to randomly die. To make matters more mysterious, the book disappeared into thin air around that same time. There isn't a single copy left anywhere in the world. What do you think happened to Shapira and his scrolls? I wanted to give a big thank you to Breezy and W. Lil Ams for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Father Crespi's Golden Library. Father Carlos Crespi Croce was a Salesian monk who dedicated his life to bettering the lives of others in South America. He educated the rural people of Ecuador for over 50 years. During his time in the country, he also stumbled across some very strange artifacts. He allegedly uncovered an entire library of ancient texts that have never been explained. Father Crespi's story is as weird as it gets. He was born in Italy in 1891. As a young man, he traveled to the small town of Cuenca in Ecuador. He was all about humanitarianism and education. Being a priest, he was also a steadfast missionary. He tried to bring God to the indigenous people while also educating them on the ways of science. The legend is that during his time in Cuenca, the indigenous people started giving him gifts. They were so happy about the work he was doing that they wanted to reward him with something big. Crespi was intrigued by the treasures they offered him. Soon he asked to be shown their source. The locals brought him to a bizarre series of underground tunnels deep in the jungle. The priest was shocked to find artifacts that appeared to be from the other side of the world. The treasure looked like it had been left in the underground labyrinth by people from ancient Babylon or Sumer. He found an entire library of texts carved on metallic tablets in an unknown language. Slowly but surely, he brought the artifacts out of the darkness and established his own museum for them. This is where things start to get suspicious. The priest had acquired an estimated 50,000 artifacts. He was in contact with the Vatican about his discoveries. They were the ones who gave him permission to start his museum. But shortly after that, around 1962, the museum was destroyed in a mysterious fire. After the priest passed away in 1982, all of his artifacts disappeared. Some say they were sold to private collectors. But the big rumor is that agents of the Vatican took the artifacts and hid them to prevent the truth from being exposed. What that truth is, I can't say. The artifacts supposedly proved ancient humans had contact with aliens. Also that a grand civilization spanned the globe before the biblical flood. The Poisoner's Tome. You shouldn't always judge a book based on its cover. This is a lesson a medieval assassin was counting on when he kept his secret stash of poisons inside a book. According to the cover, the book is a volume of philosophical prose by theologian Sebastião Barradas, published in 1640. But when the book is open, things get gruesome. The book is a secret traveling case for deadly materials. There are no pages. Instead, it's a collection of tiny drawers and vials, once used to mix fatal concoctions. On the inside of the cover is a banner with two skeletons and the words Statutum est hominibus semel mori. In English, it means, all people are destined to die once. It's an incredibly ominous passage from Hebrews 9:27. It's doubly ominous when you look at the labels on the tiny drawers within the bulk of the book. The drawers are labeled with the names of 10 poisonous plants: foxglove, hemlock, and wolfsbane, just to name 3. Properly administered, the ingredients once held inside the drawers were fatal. There isn't much history on the book or where it came from. It appears to have been used as a briefcase by a poisoner who needed to take his lethal elixirs on the road. But it may also be a modern forgery. Book conservator Mindel Dubansky says putting a precise date on objects like this is very tricky. It may be composed of 17th century supplies, but there is no indication it was ever used to kill anyone. Nonetheless, the book was recently put up for sale at auction for over $10,000. Marjorie Kempe. The earliest surviving autobiography written in English was authored by a woman named Marjorie Kempe. It is a truly fascinating read and an eye-opening look into 14th century East Anglia. Although I say it's written in English, it's a much older version called Middle English. It's what people spoke during Marjorie's lifetime over 600 years ago. Although people spoke it, most women didn't write it. Women in the Middle Ages were extremely illiterate. If a woman wanted a biography made, it usually had to be written by a man. Marjorie Kempe was one of the first modern feminist heroines. She was born into nothing, yet led a truly remarkable life. She was born in 1373. She wasn't a peasant, but she wasn't rich either. Her father John was a landowner in the town of King's Lynn. By the time she was 20, Marjorie was married to a man named John Kempe. Her husband was even less wealthy than she was. In her autobiography, she mentions the regret she had going through with the marriage. Marjorie didn't think her husband had enough money and admitted she never should have married him. Imagine for a second that you have married someone who you really regretted marrying. How many children do you suppose you would have with this individual? For Marjorie, the answer is 14. She had 14 children with her husband while also running her own successful brewing business. She cared for her children deeply, though not enough to mention any specific details about them throughout her entire autobiography. Though to be fair to Marjorie, talking about her 14 kids probably would have taken up quite a bit of her book. Her book is an excellently written account of her life. It's also very cool that only a single manuscript survived the Middle Ages. There are copies everywhere now, but that's only because her book was uncovered in 1934, copied and redistributed. It was being kept in a private collection before being rediscovered. Now the original is stashed within the British Library's Rare Manuscript collection in London. If you want to learn the full details of Marjorie's exciting life, you can surely find a copy of her autobiography online. Carmilla the Vampire. Bram Stoker was not the first person to write a story about a vampire. There is an older book that likely gave Bram his inspiration. It's a piece of vampiric literature not largely known to people outside Ireland. The story revolves around the true, original vampire, a woman named Carmilla, who had a love affair with another woman. The novella was written by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu in 1871. It's titled simply Carmilla, just as Stoker's book was titled Dracula. You can already see the similarities taking shape. The story of Carmilla is told through the eyes of Laura. Laura was a young English woman, just like the English protagonist in Dracula, who fell prey to the vampire. Laura and the vampire Carmilla developed an intense relationship after Carmilla arrived unexpectedly at Laura's home. As Laura and Carmilla's relationship blossomed, the nearby villages erupted in panic. People were dying of a mysterious illness, while Laura suffered recurring dreams of a giant cat mauling her in the night. Without spoiler alerting the entire book, in case you ever want to read it, I won't say much more, only that the rest of the tale involves a vampire hunter, a hidden tomb, and a wooden stake. The similarities between the book Carmilla and the book Dracula are far too great to imagine Bram Stoker didn't copy the earlier work, at least a little bit. Though to be fair, vampire stories have been told in one form or another since the birth of human civilization. The Alien book. People have been debating the existence of aliens for centuries. A book recently came to light that was written 300 years ago and proves medieval people believed in aliens. The book was published in 1698 by Dutch scientist Christian Huygens. It's called The Celestial World Discovered, or Conjectures Concerning the Inhabitants, Plants and Productions of the Worlds in the Planets. Yes, that was the entire title. Authors in the 17th century had no shame when it came to extraordinarily long book names. A copy of this old tome was recently unearthed in England's Cotswolds in an antiquities event. Somebody's family had been passing the thing down for centuries. It was expected to get upwards of $5,000 at auction. But what exactly does the book say? The Dutch scientist tried to describe what he thought alien life looks like on other planets. He was particularly fascinated with Jupiter and Saturn. This was long before scientists understood just how inhospitable the other planets in our solar system are. Christian's theory, which he detailed in the book, says that animals were bigger on bigger planets. He said creatures on Jupiter were likely 15 times bigger than elephants. He also believed there must be intelligent life on the other planets, with hands and feet just like ours. The book is not definitive proof that aliens exist. Rather, it's an interesting glimpse into the mind of a scientist trying to imagine alien life in the 17th century. It was a time when believing in aliens was not something the church was particularly fond of. Christian Huygens was also the man who discovered Saturn's moon Titan in 1655. The penguin cubator. Sir Alan Lane was the man who revolutionized casual reading. In the early 20th century, paperback books existed but were very poorly made. The subject material was also quite bad, resulting in low sales. Lane, the creator of Penguin Books, changed all that. He mass-marketed paperbacks of classic literature. A book would cost you a measly sixpence, same as a pack of cigarettes back then. To help motivate casual readers to pick up his new paperbacks, Lane also came up with a really strange invention, and it could make a comeback one day. His invention was called the Penguin Cubator. It was a vending machine for paperback novels in 1937. The very first one was installed on 66 Charing Cross Road in London. They were soon found outside railway stations and anywhere else people might want to pick up an easy novel. These machines don't exist anymore, but who knows what the future has in store. Lane actually got his inspiration for the machines after a weekend visit with Agatha Christie. He was on a platform waiting for the train and wanted something to read on his trip home to London. He went into the bookstall but only found magazines and boring reprints of Victorian novels. He was so appalled by the meager selection that his brilliant idea for the Penguin Cubator was born. Penguin Books Limited is still one of the biggest publishers in the world. The medieval Kindle. The Kindle revolutionized the way people read books. At least it did in our day and age. But the truth is that a medieval Kindle was already around in the 1400s. People have been reading on the go since the Middle Ages. Back then, people used book coffers to take their favorite stories with them wherever they roamed. This artifact you're looking at now was recently acquired by Oxford's Bodleian Libraries. It's a rare French Gothic box that could hold several books or scrolls. It would have been lugged around like a satchel by scholars and enthusiasts of literature 600 years ago. The book box is the first of its kind to be brought into the collection at the library. It's made of wood, coated with leather and secured by a strong metal lock. It also had leather straps fixed to the sides for easy carrying. Inside the box is the image of God the Father in majesty. It was a popular image in the 15th century, believed to protect whoever carried it from evil. Of course, the box could have carried anything. It could have been used to transport money or documents, even medicine. But it was intended for books. Religious books in particular. Dr. Christopher Fletcher, the keeper of special collections at the library, called it a remarkable item. He said the book coffer is an excellent example of the human habit of trying to take information wherever they go. This was the 14th century version of the text message. Do you think they should bring back vending machines for books? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe to help support the channel. Come back soon for more awesome videos.